In this video, we will discuss the press laws introduced in Pakistan from 1947 to 2023. When Pakistan appeared on the map of the world, a Cold War was going on between the Soviet Union and America, and the channel being used was the media. The whole world was divided in two blocks, Communist bloc and American bloc. When Pakistan came into being, it also had to choose between the two, so leaders of the nation decided to be a part of the American bloc. After that, numerous actions were taken against those newspapers, magazines and journalists who were more bent towards communist school of thought. After joining American bloc, the first newspapers and publications that were targeted by the government were Progressive Papers Limited, PPL's, publications. In 1953, Communist Party was banned. From 1947 to 1953, almost 58 magazines and books were banned by the establishment and removed from the market. On October 7, 1958, President Sikandar Mirza abolished the constitution and declared martial law in the country. This was the first military regime. The parliamentary system in Pakistan came to an end. Within 3 weeks of assuming charge on October 27, 1958, Sikandar Mirza was ousted by General Ayub Khan, the then Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces, who then declared himself President. Ayub Khan imprisoned many publications including Syed Sibte Hassan, editor of Weekly Lailo Nihar, Ahmed Nadim Kazmi, editor of Amruz, Faiz Ahmed Faiz, editor of Pakistan Times, journalists who worked for Progressive Papers Limited, PPL. In 1961, the Press and Publications Ordinance was formed and enforced to keep the newspapers under government's control. It was a black law, completely boycotted by media organizations and journalists. It dealt with printing presses, newspapers, periodicals, books and other publications. Government had been empowered to ask for security deposits from printing presses for publishing newspapers or books, as well as for issuing objectionable material as defined by the ordinance. Security deposits ranging from by 500 to Rs 10,000 could be demanded from printing presses. Appeals against such action would lie with a special bench of the High Court. The government had also been empowered, in certain cases, to prohibit the printing presses from publishing books or newspapers. Under the new rules, before obtaining a declaration, a publisher would have to show that he had the financial resources required for regularly publishing a newspaper. Editor was required to possess reasonable educational qualifications or satisfactory experience in journalism. In 1964, National Press Trust was established and all the PPL papers were given to this monster. NPT had the right to take over any such newspaper, magazine, which is apparently financially not able to run the newspaper or is dangerous to the country's security. Apparently, it was an independent body, but actually it was state-controlled. PPL's publications, Daily Mashriq, was also handed over to NPT, National Press Trust. Sindhi paper, Hilali Pakistan, was also taken over. Morning News, which was being published since 1936, first from Calcutta and after partition from Karachi and Dhaka, was also taken over. 13 Bengali newspapers were also taken over by NPT. Although freedom of press was enjoyed by the media and newspapers, General Yahya's period is not considered as a flourishing period of journalism, as in this period no ethics were observed by the newspapers, with an exception to few reputable papers. Many dummy papers were invigorated, free insulting and even abusive language was being used. Certain actions were taken against journalists. First target was, again PPL, 24 journalists were fired from Amroz, Pakistan Times and Lailo Nihar. These fired journalists formed Journalist United and revived a dummy paper Azad. A rebellion case was filed against the editorial board of Azad in the martial law court as they were favouring the majority party that won the election. This action made it clear that even in General Yahya's government, freedom was restricted. In the 1971 crisis, journalists and newspapers were under strict observation and no journalist or newspaper was permitted to write about the situation in East Pakistan, to keep the people blind of the situation. People's right to know was an unacceptable thing to the government. Later, the nation's anger over the country's humiliating defeat by India boiled into street demonstrations throughout the country. To forestall further unrest, General Yahya hastily surrendered his powers to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto of Pakistan People's Party. After the Dhaka fall, the media played a great role in reboosting the nation's morale that was very disappointed over the country's division into two parts and brought them back to real life. Draconian law, PPO was revived again and used against the press by the new government. Weekly Outlook and Punjab Punch were closed down using this ordinance despite the fact that Punjab Punch and Outlook were among those papers that supported PPP in the election. General Zia-ul-Haq came to power by overthrowing Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto after widespread civil disorder in a military takeover on July 5, 1977, and imposed martial law. He assumed the post of President of Pakistan in 1978, which he held till his death on August 17, 1988. 18 magazines and newspapers were closed down. Almost 150 journalists were arrested and given different punishments by the martial law courts in this period. Moreover, no newspaper could publish anything without prior approval from the Information Department. Until 1988, these restrictions continued. In 1988, General Zia-ul-Haq died in a planned aircraft crash. In 2014, Yang Group of newspapers had to face a lot of restrictions and even loneliness in the media sphere, when a senior journalist of the organization was attacked and media organization blamed the country's intelligence agency for it. In 2021, Protection of Journalists and Media Professionals Act was introduced, in which it stated to ensure every journalist and media professional's right to life and security of person. In 2022, President Arif Alvi signed an ordinance, approved by the Cabinet, to amend the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act to allow citizens to file complaints against a defamatory social media post. The jail under the ordinance termed for defamation has been increased from 3 years to 5 years. In 2023, Official Secret Act was introduced to secure the official secrets of government and restricted that no one can publicly discuss government's discussions in any format.